everybody, and welcome to the September Cabinet meeting. So first of all, are there any apologies, Alex? No, there are none. Are there any declarations of interest from members of Cabinet? No, thank you. There are no. So we've got one public question first of all. We've received one public question. The question is from Mr. John Senna. So, Mr. Senna, would you please ask your question? If you care to come up to the microphone, please. And you have 3 minutes.
Over the past few years, many people have been dumping their unwanted items in and around the communal bins in the area around my home and throughout the estate where I live. As chair of the local community group, many of my neighbours are very upset about the mess around the bin areas, which impacts pride in our area and the city. I reported this issue many times to the council. Sometimes items are removed, but I have had to make numerous reports when items are not removed. I have provided details and registration plate details of the fly tippers I have witnessed in the hope that the council will prosecute. However, this does not seem to be happening, as one of the fly tippers does it on a weekly basis. I have now been told that we do not qualify as a Love Norwich area, which, when can we see some action?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Senna. Over the autumn, the Council is looking to ramp up the Love Norwich campaign citywide to make a real positive impact on streets across the city. We're working through the details of the programme at the moment, and no decisions have been taken on priority areas or approaches at present. We will look to learn from experience to benefit the entire city. All reports of fly tipping are responded to, and where sufficient evidence is available, we will pursue those committing the offence. However, as part of the Love Norwich campaign, we're looking at reviewing our current approach to enforcement, learning from the best practice nationally, and rolling out CCTV coverage where appropriate. This is likely to result in an increased level of enforcement activity over the autumn and winter. Additionally, I'm aware that officers from the Housing Service are actively looking at the suitability and type of enclosed bin stores for a number of parts of the city, including West Bothergate and Juro Place. This is an ongoing process, and decisions should be made shortly about how to proceed, irrespective of where the Love Norwich campaign stands. Now you can ask a supplementary if you wish.
One example I'd like to give you is food waste bins in the area where I've been reporting since May this year, and basically 2 of the bins have still not been emptied. They've got numerous contaminated red labels on, and every time I inquire, I'm being told I have to wait 8 weeks for action to be taken. Bearing in mind the amount of money that's been given to the Love Norwich campaign, and also being told that we don't qualify in our area, I've been reporting, as well as other residents have been reporting for the last 10 years.
So, sorry, what was the question?
When are we likely to see some results? When with the missed bin collections that we've been reporting?
The first thing I'd just say again, if you've been told you're not a priority area, that's not correct. I don't know who told you that, but that is not the case. So the Love Norwich priority areas have not been established yet, and the provision of additional bin storage for the 2 areas, West Bothergate and Juro Place, is unaffected by that. The other thing is that the Love Norwich campaign, as I've just said, we're going to be ramping it up over the autumn and winter. The money was agreed very late in the last financial year, so once it was agreed, then there was a body of work to be done to ascertain exactly how it would be spent and rolled out. So you will see that happening over the autumn and winter. The other thing to say is if there are issues around food waste bins, I wasn't aware of that. If you care to give me the details, I'll look into it and get it actioned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we now move on to questions. There are no petitions, so we move on to questions to Cabinet members from councillors. So I've got two here to me. So the first one is from Councillor Hockner. Do you have a supplementary, please? And I have been asked to just reinforce, and this isn't just to do with you, just generally to reinforce, that everyone gets one question or one follow-up question, in other words.
All right, I have only one question, no worries.
That's all right. Sometimes you get multiple questions, that's all.
Okay, yeah.
That's
First
right.
of all, I'd like to thank you once again for the time you've taken to speak to me about ethical advertising, and I'm really glad to hear that this is something you're committed to moving forward as soon as possible. Regarding a moratorium on digital billboards, campaigners have been arguing that this could be legal, seeing that the current national legislation doesn't deal with specifically digital billboards, but just billboards more generally, so that there's maybe scope to develop something. There are councils that have used the existing legislation on public highway safety and amenity to tighten criteria around these two issues to resist the installation of consent for digital billboards. So my question is, will you commit to looking at policies that exist that are progressive in this regard? For example, Bristol City Council's draft local plan is very progressive in this regard, and to engage with legal advice as it emerges on moratoriums on digital billboards. Thank you.
I mean, obviously, my response is based on the advice, the officer advice that I've had, and clearly that's what I would do. I'm happy to ask the question as to whether, for example, because Bristol's a unitary authority, maybe it's got more powers than us. I really don't know, but I will ask that question again. As I say, the response is based on the advice of officers here. And then question 2, Councillor Osborne, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Councillor Sturnard. Yes, I do. Refer to Norwich Airport's efforts to reduce its carbon emissions. I thought it would be very interesting to take a look at what they actually plan. So I looked online to find their plan for reducing carbon emissions. Councillor Galvin's going to hand out the plan, which is
so Jamie, you get to ask a question. You don't get to hand things round either. I mean, that's just too late. Yeah, just taking advantage and being really rather rude. You know, we do have rules and housekeeping here. As I say, you get to ask a question. You don't get to make a speech. So if you've got a specific question to ask me, I'm not even going to look at it because it's out of order. And you know, I know the Green Group will constantly push the boundaries and try and push the envelope, but you're not going to be able to do it. So you can ask one question only. I'll answer it, and then that's an end to it.
Okay, my question is going to be, given that their plan is all of 3 lines long, provides no detail on how they actually intend to reduce carbon emissions, do you, as a yes or no answer, endorse the master plan and their ambition to increase airport capacity to 1.4 million flights per year by 2040?
Well,
yes or no?
First of all, you don't get to tell me whether I answer yes or no. So, you know, we are working and seeking to influence the airport as best we can, and that's what we will continue to do, because we recognise that we do need to persuade them to reduce their carbon emissions. And I hope you will support that, or I'm not sure what the Green Party position is on the airport. I suspect you'd want to close it if you could. I'd be very surprised if you didn't. But we will continue to work with them because they are a fact in the city, and we need to ensure that they respond to the climate crisis, and we will carry on pushing them to do that.
So the 3-line plan is a response to the climate crisis?
You don't get a chance to make another comment, Jamie, so please, you know, stop pushing the boundary, not for the first time, because all that will happen is you'll get shut down more earlier on the next time it happens. Okay, Let's move on then to item 5, which is the minutes. So we're looking for accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of July. First of all, can we accept these as a correct record, please? Agreed? Thank you. Let's move then on to the corporate performance report. This is where I get to speak extensively. I'll try for it not to be too extensive, but here we go. There's sort of mostly good news. There were 22 quarterly and no annual KPIs reported for this period. So if you look at page 28, first of all, we have the quarterly KPIs by status for quarter 1, 23-24. And you'll see there are 2 pie charts. They show that overall performance is improved for this quarter, 1st of April 2023 to the 30th of June 2023, compared with the last reporting period. For the current quarter, you'll see table 2 on page 28 shows that performance is improved across 15 KPIs, has worsened across 5 KPIs, and there's been no change in the case of 1 KPI. Continuing on page 28, it notes that Appendix A provides additional information on notable successes for the reporting period. So there's a good deal of detail about that in Appendix A, but just to highlight them. First of all, we've completed the Future Shape Norwich projects that have a potential income value of around £1.7 million, excluding assets, resulting in a positive impact on the budget for 2023-24 and beyond. There's been a completion of assurance checks by the Department for Business and Trade for the COVID business grants paid in cohort 2, resulting in positive feedback for the council and its administering of the grants. There's been successful implementation of the new Elections Act 2022, the 2023 local elections in Norwich, including the introduction of voter ID, notwithstanding our grave reservations about voter ID, and I would want to emphasise that we are not in support of the current government's policy. We secured planning approval for the development proposals at Anglias Square, the most significant regeneration opportunity in the northern part of the city, and one of Norwich City Council's most important priorities for regeneration. We negotiated the purchase of vacant land at Windmill Road using the Townsdeal Revolving Fund, with the intention of disposing of it to a developer capable of building the consented 17 dwellings as soon as possible. And that land had remained empty for about 10 years. So that's just showing again the power of the revolving fund. There have been improvements to Wenson Park with £85,000 of Levelling Up Parks Fund. And also the successful recruitment to the post of Chief Executive, Lou Rawsthorne, should I say, just change your name, Lou, following the departure of Stephen N. Evans at the end of March 2023, and we're very pleased to have you here, Lou, of course. Also on page 29, organisation-wide KPIs. KPIs 25 and 26 are the relevant KPIs, and this is around Norwich City Council being in a good shape to serve the city. Really good news around the percentage of freedom of information requests responded to within 20 working days and complaints responded to within 10 days, with some significant improvements there. Understanding customer complaints remains a key priority for the council. They're seen as an opportunity to improve things and not as a threat, and we're working towards having a fair, open and honest culture around feedback and complaints to ensure that problems are picked up at an early stage, that lessons are learned, that poor practice is highlighted and is right, and that people can feel confident about complaining, and a number of other benefits which are set out pages 29 to 30. The KPIs around people living independently and well in a diverse city. Over the quarter, there's been a 28% increase in the number of homeless households living in temporary accommodation. However, the figure of 59 is still below the target of 60 and intervention of 68. So we continue intensively to manage the use of temporary accommodation, and the number of homeless households in temporary accommodation remains consistently low despite high numbers of homelessness presentations. With a reduction in the relet time of council homes remaining a key priority for the council, the need to rely on temporary accommodation should decrease. Then the KPIs around Norwich being a sustainable and healthy city. 2 quarterly KPIs are reported for this aim, both of which have seen an improvement since the last period. There's been a 76% improvement in the number of private sector insulation measures completed as expected, in particular, which is impressive. Also, KPIs around Norwich having the infrastructure and housing it needs to be a successful city. There are 5 quarterly KPIs reported for this aim. 4 have seen an improvement since the last reporting period, and 1 has moved from amber to red. And the table showing that is on page 31. There's been a 2% drop in the percentage of council housing rent collected, excluding arrears brought forward. A collection rate of 96.71% for the end of Q1 in the current financial climate, however, is regarded as positive. And casework continues with officers having more customer responsive conversations, offering advice and support to tenants while making clear tenants' responsibility to pay. Reducing the relet time of council homes remains a key priority for the council. This quarter shows a significant 32% decrease in average relet time of council homes in terms of calendar days, and I commend that. We're maintaining a positive downward trend, and we expect to see further reductions throughout the current months as additional contractors tackle those empty homes requiring whole house improvements. And also further KPIs around the council being in good shape to serve the city. There are 8 quarterly KPIs for that aim. 4 of them have improved, 3 have worsened since the last reporting period, and you can see the details in the table on page 32. There's not been any significant reduction in the amount of contact received by telephone, so the channel shift percentage remains below target. But initiatives to increase digital interaction with the council are ongoing. With telephone contact remaining at the current level, vacancies in the customer contact team are impacting on customer satisfaction levels. The team are focused on recruitment and increasing resources with 2 additional temporary advisors to meet current telephone contact demand. This will allow the team to reduce the average wait time and a likely increase in satisfaction rates. But also, there are some positive indicators under these KPIs, as you will see from the chart. A detailed financial report to Cabinet in September 2023 will include progress against our medium-term financial strategy. However, we continue to exceed the target when it comes to remaining within the general fund budget, which is very good news. The appendices provide far more detail, and obviously my colleagues have far more detail in their heads. So first I'd like just to ask all my colleagues, have you anything you wish to add or question or comment on? Beth?
I think really just, you've already highlighted it, but really just bring attention to, we are still processing homelessness applications, moving that through, and that we're in a really difficult time financially as a country. People are in very difficult positions, and that we have an amazing team dealing with more and more people, increasing demand on the service. And I think, the figures speak for themselves, that, we are still offering very, very good support as a city council and filling that duty. I'm really proud of the team.
Absolutely, well said, thank you. Are there any other comments from colleagues? Adam? You've got it, someone always has it. It moves around randomly, I don't know how it happens.
I'd like to congratulate our benefits team on meeting their KPIs for processing times for housing benefit and council tax reduction plans. The processing KPI was increased for this civic year, and nonetheless we're still exceeding it.
Thank you, Adam. Any other comments or additions? Kate?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight with regard to customer contact, and the results aren't a surprise due to a number of factors, and just to say that there's lots of work ongoing, so we anticipate better numbers, improved numbers at the next time of the next report. And just to say some positive words for the people who work in the customer contact centre. I know that it can be hard for people to get through sometimes. I know that some people struggle to fill out forms online, etc. But I spent best part of, well, the morning in the customer contact centre, and it's not just a matter of people answering phones and directing them, it's, you know, it's a proper bespoke service. And yeah, they work really hard and really effectively, so I hope we can continue to support them with measures we're putting in place to make sure that they can do their job as they want.
Yeah, well said, absolutely. And it's a really tough job, it's a hard job. Any others? No? Okay, so we'll move on to Lucy. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the report and the further information and any thoughts on it. Very valuable. On page 29, it says despite the volume of complaints, which seems to be increasing disproportionately 33% compared to the same quarter last year. So I'm assuming here that the responsible cabinet members looked into what the underlying causes for the increase in complaints are, for example, to see if there's a clear explanation for the 33% increase in customer complaints across the council, whether it's focused on the service area, if there's a breakdown of this and the respective movements. So the question really is, can the cabinet members tell us how the increase in complaints can be explained?
Yeah, okay. So, who wants to take it? Pardon? Yeah. Paul, is that one for you?
No, I don't think it's one of our officers.
Okay, all right. You have an officer response?
Yes, I can respond.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Galvin. We do look at the trends in complaints and, you know, the detail behind those. I don't have to hand right now what that detail is sitting behind those, but we can get that and we can let you have that following this meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Lou. And I'd quite like to see that as well. Thank you. Good. Okay, let's move on then to item 6, 7. No, item 6, beg your pardon, which is. No,
It's all good.
we resolve to accept the report. Yes, all those in favour? Got that. Okay, item 7, which is scrutiny committee recommendations. That's you, Paul, isn't it?
Indeed, thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to deal with the Elections Act of 2022, the discussion of, and my colleague, Councillor Giles, will listen to the second matter. Can I first of all point out as to the first part, if you like, the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee in the Elections Act. Now, you've got some of my comments at the back here. In fact, I was actually at the meeting, and the comments I made then here were actually made at the meeting, and one of the reasons why the Labour Group agreed to these recommendations. Some of the research around which is called upon is being carried out by the Electoral Commission, who will be producing a very, I'm sure, very professional, as they always are, study into this and obviously giving advice to both central government and to how the legislation that's to be modified to help people, but also to local authorities in terms of how we can encourage the level of voting and actually encourage those who at the moment do not vote to actually do so. That I think I should also say that already today I've seen a press release from the Local Government Association, which has also carried out some research which identified a number of problems, and I think they were quite concerned that the information gathered from the returning officers didn't make it quite clear that, certainly with the general election coming in the next 15 months, that the present regulations regarding to voter ID felt complex, making the whole situation much more complex. Now, onto the question of a personal voter registration programme that we undertook in 2020, that this should be done again. Certainly, I think it's a political cabinet. We discussed this amongst ourselves last week, and we are of one, and I do appreciate there's a procedure that has to be for evidence it is being taken to the CLT board, but I'm sure the leader of the council will have further negotiations with the chief executive in that we will support such a move. I believe that the monies we can find this monies, and I think it will be very useful and very valuable to increase the level of postal voting who can actually vote without the need to worry about voter ID. So that's the point of view with that particular section. So if that's like pass on to my colleague, Councillor Jones.
Thank you. And thank the Scrutiny Committee for their recommendations, and also thank all the third sector partners and representative organisations that attended the committee and engaged in the process leading up to it. Obviously, an extensive list of recommendations coming out of the meeting, definitely one. And I'll set out now Cabinet's response to that. In response to the recommendations, we will commit to fund a 2-year specialist housing officer role in the Home Options team to work with asylum seekers and refugees. We will seek to delegate some of the government funding secured to work with asylum seekers and refugees and third sector organisations to address their gaps in capacity, working with such organisations and our partners at Norfolk County Council Public Health and the people from the broad team to identify gaps, address needs and avoid duplication. We will examine the need to update the website in consultation with representative organisations to ensure it is inclusive alongside the production of the EDI development plan. We will seek to build on our City of Sanctuary status and remain committed in the medium term to becoming an accredited Council of Sanctuary through cross-team working to ensure our services meet the necessary criteria to enable such an application. To recognise the critical importance of delivering equality for all of our residents through our EDI strategy, which is currently out for consultation, and development plan, including asylum seekers and refugees. To collate information relating to free activities taking part at our community centres, sending as a list to representative organisations. To support community associations to apply for grant funds to support their charitable objectives as and when they become available. To continue engaging with the Norwich bid in business and the community through City Vision partnerships, to support possibilities for asylum seekers and refugees to access training, work experience and employment. To advertise in-tram training sessions to councillors. To ensure communications with residents, benefits letters, etc. are as accessible as possible within the constraints of what we are legally obliged to incorporate. And to build on the relationships established each Scrutiny Committee meeting between our neighbourhoods and community enabling team and the Serco housing officers at the asylum hotels in Norwich. Thank you.
So, thank you, Adam. Oh, and clearly the recommendation is to consider whether to adopt. Leah.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in on the point made by Councillor Kendrick with regard to postal voting recommendations made by Scrutiny. It's slightly unusual, this set of recommendations, because ultimately it's down to the returning officer how the elections operate, and I'm conscious she is to the left of me right now. I'm one of her deputies, along with a few others in the room. And obviously we do respect the views of Cabinet members, of scrutiny of election agents and how we conduct and run those elections to ensure fairness and transparency. I think I just want to exercise a little bit of caution in regard to the recommendations by Scrutiny in light of some other information that's been emerging alongside the Scrutiny recommendations. At the Scrutiny Committee, I reflected on the potential costs that were involved in running a repeat postal vote scheme. Obviously there's a point about the council's budget and how we fund that, but moreover I think it's become more apparent about the risk associated with Royal Mail in particular and delivery of votes in the election. And I'll highlight, for example, the issue at Brighton and Hove Council, which emerged where 1,400 postal votes were not received until after the election, should have been with the council before, and those people were disenfranchised. So as we review the recommendations from Scrutiny that are being endorsed by Cabinet, We just will need to manage that risk alongside the risks of people being disenfranchised because of the voter ID issue. I think it's a little bit of a rock and a hard place issue at the moment because there are risks either way, and we'll just need to take that into account as we look at it moving forwards.
I did in fairness say during my speech that there would need to be further consultation with CLT and with the leader of the council and obviously the chief executive. So that point I think was made, but obviously I'm very glad you clarified that. Thank you.
Thank you. The recommendation is to consider whether to adopt all or some of the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee. Are there any comments or questions from colleagues? No? Lucy?
Thank you, yes, please. Yeah, I would really like to just make a comment saying thank you to the officers and thank you to everyone that came and participated in both those pieces of scrutiny. They were really important pieces of work, I think, as a member of that committee, and they're undertaken in a really careful, evidence-based way. And credit to this council and the officers involved and the citizens who participated, which will really add value, I think, to our work. My question was, will you be taking forward all of the recommendations, and can we see some time frames? You've given me a really set of answers on which ones, but I haven't. So the question is that all of which ones that is impressive list, and I'm really, really glad we're taking on. I think I'll have to wait and take the notes of what you've actually done and answer questions about any that didn't find their way through. But I'm very hopeful that all the recommendations will have been taken on board. Is there anything major left out?
I can't provide timescales for each of them individually in this meeting, but I'm sure that can be communicated in due course.
Thank you. Okay, so can we adopt the recommendation? That's to consider whether to adopt all or some of the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee, and we've got a proposal here in the appendix for all the recommendations which are being put to us. All those in favour? Brilliant, thank you. Unanimous, of course. So let's move on then to item 8. So it's back at you, Paul, I think, for the budget monitoring report.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm pleased to present the budget monitoring position based on the information provided by budget holders for the first quarter of the financial year, which has been enhanced to reflect other material issues and the risen between the June projections being supplied and now. Overall, the Council continues to maintain a strong financial position with the General Fund overall indicating an underspend of £2.4 million. The savings proposals agreed for this financial year are on track, including those agreed for increased levels of income from Treasury management activities. Our strong performance in the previous financial year has contributed to our strong position, as the budgeted contributions to our reserve is now not required. There remains the risk, however, and in line with the principles of prudency, we have made appropriate provision to cover the impact of those where we have a reasonable base on which to estimate the impact in other cases such as for the yet unagreed pay award. We have highlighted the risk and will make appropriate provision when the position becomes clearer. The housing revenue account, a small underspend has been projected, which is attributable largely to the impact of continuing high rates of inflation on expenditure necessary to maintain the housing stock. Capital programme. Sorry, and I very much welcome this report and ask the Cabinet to agree to the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Paul. Very concise. It's good. Are there any questions to Paul? No. Okay. So, Lucy, do you have a question?
Yes. I've got a question about the story of the constant underspend in the HRA, which seems persistent. If you go back to budget speeches over the last 3 years, not delivering on vital upgrades, especially where there's been some better home standards and decarbonising the housing stock is a single consistent thread. And here we are again, this is almost £4 million not spent. That means heating systems not upgraded, solar not installed, and leaking windows not replaced. That's bad news all around for residents, for the council, because of increased cost due to inflation, and for the climate, because emission reductions.
So could you get to the question, please, Lucy?
Yes. Again, we see capacity issues and problems with bring up the right tenders, which is a really long way of saying incompetence at the heart of it, a familiar tale. What can be done to ensure that constant delays and underspending in the HRA funding stop?
Beth, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, and I would like to challenge some of that of incompetence in that. I think that's a really offensive thing to say. I have a high level of respect for those people who do this process. I would hope that you would apologise to the officers for saying things like that. I think it's, well, in terms of tendering and procurement and processes, that is something that is very well managed. In terms of the detail of spending within the HRA, things do move, and that is, it's not always set in stone in terms of the details of the underspend. I can't go into that in very specific details right now, but that is, probably Bob can give more details on that potentially, but it's that things happen at different points that don't always fit into a budget cycle precisely. So actually, I would rather there was a bit of an underspend than I didn't have enough money to do something right now. And that actually, yes, it's shifted over from one financial year to another. Actually, it will get done, and we're committed to very high quality standards in our housing for all our residents. But it's, you know, things don't always fit very particularly within a financial year. And I would rather that we could work effectively with that and make sure things aren't missed.
Did you want to add to that, Bob, before I come to Paul?
Yeah, so I think endorse the answer Joe's given. One of the things that we are trying to do is get best value for money out of any procurement that we do. But when we do that, that means we have to revisit the tendering process and specification. When we do that, that then builds in delay. The consequence of the delay is that we then don't necessarily spend the money that we anticipated spending within the year. One of the things that the Property Services Director is looking at is actually, can we develop a window of, say, 5 years, which is not unusual for local authorities to move to. So you have a 5-year scope. It deals with this ebb and flow, because what you're looking at is, we are going to spend 45 million over the next 5 years on this exercise, and then you kind of have time to get the procurement in, do the delivery, and make sure it all happens in a 45 million, also in a 5-year window. Finance things, right, drawing their money in the right time frames to enable it to work, and then an administrative reporting structure, which is what this is, doesn't impact on that, the actual delivery of the work. Yeah,
I understand that. Thank you. Paul?
Yes, I do appreciate that the Council was hardly likely to compliment the administration, but I think words like incompetency is actually rather offensive. I think instead we should get to know from the fact that whereas yet another large local authority, Birmingham, has declared Section 144 is often rather misleadingly termed as bankruptcy, isn't actually, but all the same they are obviously in financial trouble. And two authorities that I have also had the pleasure of serving as a member, that's Kent and East Sussex, are also in financial trouble, which is East Hampshire County Council, and yet we are a million miles away from that, and I think that is a sign of competence.
So many years ago.
Oh,
yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for that comment, Paul. So, if there are other questions or comments, can we adopt the recommendation that Cabinet agrees to note and propose the changes set out below for approval by full council, and we set out A, B and C. All those in favour? Thank you. So let's move now to item 9. That's the update to the capital programme. That's you again, Paul. I remember when I had your portfolio, they used to come like number 9 buses.
Yes. I wish I had paid by this speech. I need to introduce a report which updates the approved capital programme. Cabinet are asked to endorse the recommendations which will progress to approval for full Cabinet Council later this month. Additional sums totaling £203,000 proposed to be added to the capital programme over the financial year 23-24. 23-24 and the financial year 24-25. Available projects for upgrading the Mancroft rooms, technology to proceed, develop phase 2 of the system to replace human resources and finance systems. Both are IT-driven improvements and are essential to support modern ways of working, deliver efficiencies in the way that the council operates. I encourage all proposals from services where in the financial year 22-23 resources were not spent and continue to be required in later years have now been reviewed by the Chief Finance Officer. This would have added around £60 million of expenditure to the agreed programmes, or the expenditure accelerated to the financial year 22-23 on Lions Homes projects will be offset against this to leave a £40 million net account for further investment in our city. I'll ask the Cabinet to agree the recommendations. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the recommendations set out on page 71. So, are there any comments, questions from Cabinet members? No. Lucy, do you have a question?
I do, thank you again. So again, it's a question on the carry forward adjustment to the budget, and it follows on from my previous question. On the previous item, just highlighting again that here it's acknowledged there's been a long-standing issue with underspending, and there's a need to deliver much more closely to the capital programme. And I'd agree that being 16 million out is not exactly delivering closely. So I'd like to understand what more work is being done to improve the profile of the capital programmes, how that's different from what's happened before, and why better delivery against the capital programme has not been achieved over the last year, although it has been flagged repeatedly.
Paul, shall I refer that to Nev?
Yes, I think that
Nev?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think you know, a lot of the issues were covered in the previous responses and from Bob. We spend a lot of time with budget holders understanding the profile of expenditure, but it does get blown off course by particularly economic factors at the moment. I went through all of the carry forward requests. They are schemes that are in progress, so it's my expectation that they will be delivered in this year, where they've carried forward the resources from previous year. We're also undertaking a specific piece of work in the autumn that's referred to in the report, and that will look at the reprofiling as necessary of resources, because we are conscious that bringing forward additional funding into this year and additional works could lead to the crowding out of other schemes, and obviously from a treasury management perspective, it's important that we understand the commitment. So there is a lot of work going on in the autumn to do that. In terms of new processes, we are just in the process of implementing a capital strategy board and new arrangements for identifying and monitoring processes even more closely than currently is the case, and that will start to deliver results very shortly too. So I hope that we shall see some improvements in the achievement of the budgets that have been agreed.
Thank you, Nev. Okay, so can we go to the recommendations, please? All those in favour? Thank you very much. And Paul, you continue with item 10, which is the Q1 23-24 Risk Register update.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to introduce the Corporate Risk Register, which has been reviewed by risk owners across the council. The Director of Risk Register also continues to be seen by the relevant management teams to give us confidence that all relevant risks have been fully reviewed. I will draw your attention to the risks rated red, including those in the appendices. We should ensure that we agree that all of these risks are relevant and highlight any areas of concern for officers to consider. The detailed information used to manage those risks, including the mitigation measures being implemented, will be subject to review by the Audit Committee, which I personally attend, and relevant recommendations for consideration by Cabinet can be brought back for considerations. Those risks identified in the Corporate Risk Register are static, but I have particularly noticed that significant risks previously identified in relation to the neutrality now appears to be receding following the government's recent U-turn on the matter. This move is to be welcome given the impact of the original decision it had on house building in our area. but it will take time to enact the relevant changes leading to further delays and serious impact the economy in our own area. I welcome this report and ask for the Cabinet to recommend. But I must, before I finish, allude to one story, and it's a county in the United States that always had at its risk possibility of a meteor strike. And when NASA actually managed to deflect the meteor, the county director came back and said, we're going to increase the risk of this. And everyone said, well, why? Because they can push the meteors out of the way. Yes, he said, but they can push it in the way as well.
Very good. Very good. Maybe we should add that. Meteor strike. Fine. Are there any questions on the risk register update from Cabinet colleagues? No, everybody's happy. Lucy, have you got any questions? No? Okay. Thank you. So we are being asked on this, just check what we're being asked to do. We're being asked to note this, aren't we?
It is, yes.
Yeah, we note and propose the changes.
Page 79.
79. So I shut my
Note the
agenda.
identified risks in direction of travel.
So we're happy to note the identified risks and direction of travel. All those in favour? Thank you. That will teach me to shut my agenda and move my page. Okay, we now move on to item 11, which is consideration of exclusion of the public. All those in favour? Thank you. So I'll wait for the public to...
Just George Smith.
No, yeah, it's just George. We're not picking on you, George.